Welcome, friends. So happy that you could join us for another episode of Let's Talk Travel. And before I forget, welcome all of you who may be joining us for an instant replay of this broadcast. We're delighted to have you tuning in as well. And speaking of delight, I am so glad to be welcoming today our longtime associate and good friend, Kevin Gregg, with us. He's going to be sharing with us about his recent trip to Portugal. And I know, Kevin, you absolutely fell in love with this beautiful country. And I am so anxious to dig in and learn some more of the details. Welcome back to Let's Talk.
Thank you.
It has been a while.
Yeah, it's been a bit. Yeah. Well, Portugal, Pat, was probably one of the few Western European countries I haven't been to. That kind of came into what made me come to the decision that that was a place I wanted to visit. But also, what came into play was Portugal. It has about 300 days per year without rain. And when you I live in Ireland, if for those of you that don't know, and I've been here 4 years. So going someplace without rain sounded pretty cool. And it's only it's only a 3-hour flight from Dublin. So it's pretty inexpensive and it's a quick trip.
Well, Kevin, there must be something really, really special about Portugal because I know you have seen a lot of the globe, and I'm not sure what it is, but I don't think I've ever heard you quite so excited about any destination you visited. I'm just anxious to learn what it is about this destination that really captured your imagination. And I know that as with any other place on the globe, there are a lot of different ways to approach a trip like this. So why don't we just dive in? Let's start with your itinerary. Share with us the areas you visited, and is there a favorite that stood out from all the others?
Okay, well, that's pretty easy. I went for 9 days, and I went to a region in Portugal called the Algarve, which is the southern region of Portugal. And I've got a little thing here. Well, earlier I showed you, for those that aren't up on geography, you can see that where Portugal is, right there next to Spain. And then I've got this here. You can see Portugal there, and I flew into Faro, where that arrow was there. And then I went across to Albufeira, Carvalho, Portimao, Lagos, and then Sagres, all the way over there on the west part. So I stayed primarily all the way down there on that very southern coast. And what I did is I flew into Faro, and then I hired a car that took me to Carvalho. Carvalho is a small beach town, and it's got a population of like 3,000 people. And that appealed to me because I prefer that type of environment. This is not my picture. All the rest of the pictures I'm going to show you are mine, but I couldn't find anything that I had. Now, this is a Google searched picture of Carvalho. And The beach while I was there was not that crowded because of pandemic type
Mhm.
crowds, but it's a beautiful small little town there. Um, the entire south of Portugal is considered a tourist area because of all the sunshine. Uh, and probably one of the more popular towns that people maybe have heard of is Albufeira.
Mhm.
Um, Albufeira in itself, that was someplace I considered going, but its general area probably is 40,000 people. The town itself, maybe 15,000. Um, if you love beaches, that's a beautiful beach in Albufeira. I did visit the Albufeira for a few hours and took that picture and some others, but um, I'm glad I didn't go there and stay. It's a little bit more touristy, and if you're a younger traveler who loves the beach, loves the souvenir and gift shops, loves late night partying, Albufeira is a good destination to go to. But I went to Carviello, and um, like I said, it's population of 3,000. I spent the entire 9 days in one resort hotel, and then just took day trips to other places like Albufeira and Lagos, Portimao, um, things like that.
That's a good way to travel, Kevin. I like that because you're not constantly, you get your centrally located base of operations, and then you branch out, and so you're not constantly on the move, packing, unpacking, shuffling from one hotel to another. So you stayed at one property. Tell us a little bit about where you stayed. Was it something you'd say was exceptional, memorable?
Yes. uh, I stayed at the Tivoli Algarve resort, and this is an angle I took that shows that the almost in every single room faces that one direction. There's a pool there in the center, but it curves around and everyone faces the same direction. And the reason why is um, this that
Ooh.
is the view or something similar. That's from my balcony. Um, so that is the view that hotel faces out to the ocean,
So every
and
room has they're all room with a view,
all
basically.
rooms have a view. Yes, when you enter into the hotel, into the lobby, you're actually entering into like the fifth or sixth floor, and then you go down to the rooms. So, that hotel, it was ideal for me. One thing that was nice was from that resort, it was only a 3/4 of a mile, 1 mile, 15-minute walk into Carviallo. Um, in Carviallo, there's plenty of restaurants. There's a small beach, and the hotel also had easy access to a hiking trail, which is something I really like to do. So overall, the resort was extremely nice. I enjoyed it a lot.
Okay, and you mentioned restaurants and food. What about the food? I've heard that Portugal can be quite a great destination for foodies, for wine lovers, and dining in general. Any meals or experiences that you would put in the memorable category?
Well, Pat, I think probably one of my bigger disappointments of the vacation was the food.
Hmm.
Um, uh, I went to a different restaurant every night. I don't like eating. I did eat my very first night in the hotel, which was a decent meal, a great meal actually. But it was just like a sub sandwich or something. But it was excellent. Uh, but all the rest of the nights, I went into town and tried a different restaurant each night, and their primary menu item is going to be seafood, of course. Um, but I had maybe 2 or 3 spectacular meals, a couple of mediocre meals, and then the rest were a disappointment. And
Really?
uh, and I think part of it was I was just picking restaurants on my own, looking at reviews. Uh, the restaurants were not really well attended. Um, I think if I was there for another length of time, I mean, you get to try one menu item, and if you pick wrong, then it might not be a bad restaurant. It's just that I picked wrong. Uh, one place, one thing to keep in mind: the Portuguese in that area apparently love salt. So if you're not a salt lover, uh, that was one problem with me. I ordered a sea bass one night, and
Ooh, I love sea bass.
oh, I swear this thing was this big. It was huge, big fat piece of sea bass, and it looked gorgeous. I took one bite, and it was like a cow's salt lick or something.
Oh
Uh,
my word.
I was only able to eat 5 or 6 bites of it, and I just couldn't. I just couldn't eat any more of it. But then, on the other hand, and I went on a day trip, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. That the driver stopped at a small out of the way cafe that probably most tourists don't even know about. Locals go there, not exclusively seafood. The We was there for lunch, and I didn't have a huge appetite, and so I thought I'd order something light, and they had sardines on the menu, which my driver that I was with, Pedro, he said the sardines are excellent here. So I envisioned, a little tin, the little sardines that we're used to. And I thought that'd be great with maybe a small salad or something. And they brought out a plate with 8 sardines on them, but these sardines were this big. And they were seasoned so they were so tasty. But Pedro was laughing at me because there's an art to how you remove the meat from these sardines. I was getting bone and all sorts of stuff. Well, I can only eat probably 3 of those 8 big sardines, and Pedro was over there drooling. So I said, "You want the rest of my sardines? You're welcome to them." So he got them, and then watching him with the knife and fork fillet those sardines and pull the meat off of them and stuff I had fun watching him eat them. But
You're
that
easily
was
entertained.
one of the great meals, and it was lunch. But yeah, so
Well, that's interesting. Uh, what what about day trips? We were talking about day trips. What stood out?
well, Pat, I I had 4 different excursions or day trip type things that I did that stood out, and one, and that I mentioned Pedro. I hired a private van and had the driver for a day trip of the area, and the area, like I showed before, uh, I was in Carviero, which is, you can't read that probably, but if you look at the underlying word
Yeah, I
in
can see
red,
it. Yeah,
that's
I see
that's
it.
that's that's
Right in the
where I
middle.
was. Yeah, that's where I was. And from there, we headed west and went to all those places, all the way to Sagres, which is out there on the tip. So that was one thing. I also did some hiking on some seaside cliffs. I took a 1 hour boat ride to see the cliffs that I had walked on top. And then I went on a winery. So this trip with Pedro, it was scheduled to be a 7 hour excursion and of South Portugal, and it was amazing. And Pedro was a young fella. This was his own business. Picked me up at the hotel in his nice Mercedes van, and he told me, he said, "I'm not married. I have no children. The day is yours. If we get back in 7 hours, great. If we go longer, are you okay with that?" And I said, "I'm fine." So the first stop we made, we went to a place called Ponta de Piedade, and if you look at the map and you can see Lagos, which is second from the left,
Yeah.
it's just very near Lagos. This is if you look at the mountains in the background in the picture to the left, that's where Lagos is. This is just
stunning.
It's just an amazing sight. If you can see the picture in the left, that's a stairwell that
So
goes down.
it looks to me like it would help if you're part mountain goat.
Well, going down was easy. Coming back up took me a bit. And Pedro was cool. He was taking pictures as well, and then he sent them to me after. He sent them to my email. So these two are mine, but of course, here's one. So if you take those stairs all the way down, you can go into like a little lagoon there, and you can rent out like kayaks and things in that lagoon. And didn't do that because the tide was out, and we were on it. I wasn't really interested in doing that. But it's a beautiful area. We probably spent about an hour just looking around and things like that. And now from this area, and I had a video of it, but it was too long to show on this. But from this spot, if you look straight south, you're looking at Morocco, Africa.
Wow.
If you look straight west, it comes out in North Carolina. So that kind of gives you an idea. It is what do they call it? It's the furthest southwest position of any point in mainland Europe.
Okay.
Okay.
Kind of like our equivalent of Key West there by the
Yeah. And we ended the day and then we stopped at other days, like other places along the way. Like I said, we had that nice lunch, just various stops along the way. And we ended up all the way on that far distant point right there. And I lied. This is actually the furthest southwest location of Western mainland Europe. Not Ponta de Piedade. This is Sagres, and there's again, not my photo, but that's a lighthouse.
Wow.
And you can see the long road that leads to that that far point there, and extremely windy, a lot of fun, and
those huge cliffs, and then it's totally flat.
yeah. And what's amazing, and I can't remember the year, but Pedro showed me some pictures. There was a storm maybe 10 years ago or something, maybe long, I can't remember. But there was a storm that came through that the waves were actually going up over those cliffs.
Wow.
And he said I could Google it or even YouTube and find pictures of it, but I haven't done that. And I should have done that because it was amazing that the waves were going that high. So that was probably, we ended up spending 9 hours together. We driving back, all of a sudden Pedro says, I'd like some ice cream. My treat. Let's stop in this town up here and I'll get some ice cream. So we sit down under a tree and had some ice cream one place. I mean, it was just really a nice, really
Yeah,
nice day.
and Kevin, don't you find that a trip like that, when you engage the services of a private driver, like, I mean, you're getting a tour, but you're also getting an insight, a window to the culture. You really make a new relationship because you connect with somebody on a deeper level, and you learn about their life, and so the trip is probably the highlight, but there are so many other benefits when you do that kind of individual custom tour, that you really connect with somebody and kind of make a new friend.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, he was telling me about where he lives and where his parents live, and said when I come back, give him a call. And I mean, so yeah, just a very personable young man, and enjoyed his company. It
And
was a
that's
great.
somebody that if we do a tour for a client in Portugal, in that area, they like what they're hearing here this evening, we've got his contact information, and we could
Yes, we do.
arrange to uh, Kevin's experience could be your experience.
Yeah. Uh, then the other thing, like I said, there were 4 different things I did. The second thing that I really enjoyed is I went on a cliffside hiking trail uh, called the Seven Hanging Valleys Trail. It's an 8-mile round trip. I mean, you go so far from the beginning, and then you have to go to the end and turn around and walk back. So it's not a loop. Um, but it's next to the cliff, very few railings. It's not for the faint of heart. It's pretty high up. The trail is rated moderate in difficulty. So if you're not used to walking and and perhaps hiking, make sure you have proper shoes. But it has amazing scenery. The first day I did it, I did the entire 8 miles. Here's one of the shots that I took. I have probably 40 or 50 pictures. It took me a while to do the hike because I kept stopping and taking pictures. But just a beautiful area of the cliffs, and
Stunning.
the this kind of shows you how high. And I kind of got a little close to the edge there, but that shows you how high you were. The boat is how small it looks. Um, this picture to the left, in the distance, you can see a lighthouse.
Yeah.
Um, that is probably the halfway point. And one of the few areas that there was a wire fence. Not sure why, and I did this trail 2 days. First day I made the entire 8 miles. The second time I did it, my legs were feeling it. I only made it to the lighthouse and then turned around and came back. The picture on the right, I don't know who in the world carried a table and 2 chairs up to this location, but they
Unreal.
did. And these 2 women were sitting there eating cookies and drinking tea. And so I thought, well, that's a perfect photo opportunity. So I asked them if it was all right if I took their picture, and they were happy. So,
Love it.
but that was fun. Then one day I decided, okay, the cliffs were cool. I want to see a different perspective. So I went on a boat trip. It was $20 or €20, which was $23, $24, something like that. I went, it was a boat of 10 people, and we went out in the boat in the ocean looking back at the cliffs I had just walked on. Here we are. We had just left Carviero. Here you can see their beach there in the town again. So this is where we departed from. And then we just went up along the cliffs. And there's these little hidden beaches all along the way. A lot of kayakers, a lot of young people out enjoying that privacy of those beaches. But
Oh, that's gorgeous.
the small boat would just take us through all these little nooks and crannies along the cliffs. And this one's interesting. This is a huge beach surrounded by the cliffs. And there probably wasn't anyone on that beach that was younger than or older than 21 and younger than 16. It was the teen hangout. And the music was playing and who knows what all, but
Now, who knows?
can you see the sunshine on that back towards the back of the beach there
Yeah.
Here's why. There's that big hole in the roof. And
Amazing.
once again, you can't see it and I can't magnify it, but if you look very, very closely on the bottom edge of that thing, you can see two little notches. Those are people looking down.
I see that. Yeah. You got to really look.
Yeah. And they were flying a drone from there. But that shows you how high that area is. But
Wow.
that was a lot of fun too. And then my fourth, so it was hiking, the boat trail, the day with Pedro, and then the last thing I did, I went on a wine tour. Nothing extraordinary there. It was a 3-hour excursion. I've been to lots of different wineries in Italy and France and around, so nothing extraordinary. But I did see a demonstration of how they produce cork. Portugal is one of the biggest producers of cork in the world. And we saw how they harvest cork from the cork trees. And what they do, a tree is planted, and in 20 years, it's now mature enough that you can harvest cork from it. And they use a special axe and cut a vertical line and 2 horizontal lines, top and bottom, around the tree, and then they just peel the bark off. The tree does not die. The tree is there for life. They peel the cork off of it. In 7 years, it regenerates more bark or more cork. So then they can harvest it again. Wow. So it's not something you want to invest in and say, hey, I'm going to open a cork farm, because you plant your first trees, you got to wait 20 years before they're even, and then each time you harvest, you've got 7 years to wait before you can harvest again.
Like I think the travel business requires patience. That's a whole new level.
But that was cool to see that. I had no idea how cork was done, and some of the trees that we looked at were 100 years old and has been producing cork for many years.
So this is one of those lifetime learning experiences along the way.
Yeah. So, that was pretty much my trip. One thing I did mention in the culinary version was I picked up these dried peri-peri spice. It's I don't know if you can see it. It's a chili.
Okay, now I see it. Yeah.
It's a chili type.
Yeah.
And it grows wild. It's also farmed now in Portugal, and it's used in a lot of the cooking. Very tasty, slight spice to it. I loved it. And so right. I bought some and brought it home with me.
Okay, kind of like my Croatian olive oil thing. You get it, you come home with a new addiction. So any surprises? Something that you didn't expect?
No, I think probably the biggest thing for that I didn't expect. Well, I expected good weather, which I got because, like I said, there's over 300 days every year without rain. Um, most of that is between November and March. Well, what you know, one day it rained.
Oh,
It wasn't significant. It stormed overnight. It rained a little bit in the day, but by afternoon it was clear enough to go out. So that was probably, my
okay.
luck.
But you just somehow fell in love with the whole package. You just
Oh
love.
yeah, friendly people, uh, great things to do, great temperatures, inexpensive compared to Ireland. Oh, hi there.
Hi,
Uh,
Kathy.
very inexpensive. Meals were costing probably half what they would cost in a restaurant in Ireland. So yeah, it was great.
Cool, cool. Ease of travel. You said from Europe it's very easy. What about protocols for the pandemic? Was it easier or more challenging? Uh,
I couldn't tell you. I mean, because from Ireland, regardless of where you go, you are restricted. You have to, if you go to the United States, for example, you have to have a COVID test before you leave Ireland. Because Portugal is part of the European Union, um, they don't have that, but you do have to fill out a locator form to show where you are, where you're going, things like that.
yeah,
You do,
that's pretty standard. Almost even the
yeah.
Caribbean now. U.S. travelers have to do one of those online forms. Takes a few minutes. It's nothing really to it.
I had to prove that I had been vaccinated to
Okay.
enter Portugal, but it was, compared to traveling to the U.S., was probably easier. But part of that again was because it was only 3 hours away. So
Okay, very good. I think for U.S. travelers, if you're vaccinated, you show you show your card. You upload that to your locator form. I think unvaccinated. This was a couple of days ago. I checked this. You must have a PCR or an antigen test in order to enter. So that's pretty standard. Always a good question to wind things up. Given the opportunity, would you ever want to go back to Portugal?
absolutely, it's a place I can see going back to time and time again. I'm even considering winters in Ireland are not pleasant. It's never freezing, but it's a damp uh, chill of in the 40s and misting rain, and it's not really pleasant. I can see going to Portugal and rent an apartment for a month. Um,
Okay,
it's
that speaks volumes.
well, the weather in the winter time, it temperature still average in the 55 to 65-degree range, but there's sun. Because it's off season, I was told and I've verified that many of the apartments in the villas are as much as 70% off of peak tourist time. So it would be fairly inexpensive. Um, like I said, the people are friendly. I could go out and hike daily. And I'd probably figure out the food, which restaurants to go to and which ones to skip. And I'd probably learn how to eat sardines.
Ex- exactly. Yeah. You experience is a great teacher. So thanks so much, Kevin. It was just delightful to have you back with us. And folks, if you're listening live, just for our live listeners, I've got a giveaway this evening. Being since it's Kevin and say, I'm going to give away packing cubes. For your next trip, let's have some packing cubes come up. So you've got to enter in the comments box as you're watching this, watching live only. Enter Portugal, and it's right up there in the screen. You don't have to figure out how to spell it. So just enter that in the comments, and you'll be in our drawing. Somebody's going to win a fabulous set of packing cubes for that next trip. Thanks again, everybody. Thank you, Kevin, again. It was so good to have you join us this evening. And folks, we'll see you again next time on Let's Talk Travel.
Bye,
Bye now.
everyone. Thanks, Pat.